Identical twins of Reddit. What's the greatest thing you've achieved by swapping places without anyone noticing? This response from you/twin_ from about 2 years ago for a similar thread has been one of my favorites. Hey, what's up everybody? My twin and I have pulled a lot of switches and pranks before, but this particular one stands out in my mind all too well. Sophomore year of college, my brother was taking a Psychology 101 class as a prerequisite. On one particular Tuesday, he approached me with a dilemma that he needed my help with. Thursday around noon he had an exam in psych, but that same morning his girlfriend's family was flying out to California to go to Disneyland and they picked him up a plane ticket. Of course I told him, okay bro, I'll go to Disneyland for you. But we all know that wouldn't be the case, no matter how much I tried. He left me with all of the material I'd need, and I started studying away in the hopes of acing this exam for him, or not heinously screwing up his grade. Here was the catch with the exam room: this professor was notorious for making it impossible to cheat. We'll call him Mr. J for this one. Mr. J had 7 TAs who would walk around during the exam and check the 2 forms of ID he required you to have, and would constantly walk up and down the aisles to check for any form of cheating. My brother, having known this, left me with some of his IDs and wished me all the best. Exam time comes, and I'm killing it. Just in case they'd notice any minute differences in looks or handwriting, I wore a backwards hat and wrapped up my hand as though it was injured. You can never be too sure. Now my twin and I love to play pranks on each other. It's just what we do. So I can't help but notice a cute blonde tar that is walking the aisles. The first time she passes me, I look up and give her a smile, almost like a cocky grin. The second lap through I look up again and whisper hi with an almost innocent smile. This continues throughout the exam until the last run through I whisper to her that I think she's cute. As luck would have it, she blushed and said I was too. When I went to turn in my exam, someone from on high was smiling down on me because she approached and gave me her number. Of course, she wasn't giving me her number, she was giving my brother her number. Knowing this, I told her I'd call her that weekend. Next week of class, she approached my brother and asked him why he never called. It was a fine prank. I wound up getting him a B and no one was the wiser. However, our story continues on 2 years later. I needed one more elective to graduate, and I figured I'd take the psych class that held the funny memory. The semester was going fine until one day I get an email from Mr. J, a very angry email, asking me to meet with him before class starts. As it turns out, the world could not be any smaller. Mr. J's mother, we'll say Mrs. M, lived in an apartment complex designed for the elderly. In this same complex resided my grandma who raised my brother and I. The two of them happened to become best friends. Mrs. M invited over her son, Mr. J, to have lunch with my grandma and herself. It was there that the topic of twins was brought up, and my grandma told a wonderful tale of how her twin grandsons pulled this heist off in a psychology class, all the while not knowing how it was his psych class. Oh, he had some questions for me. I went down to meet with him, expecting certain expulsion for myself and or my brother. Luck was on our side though, because he just wanted to know exactly how we pulled it off. Every little detail he made note of. He spoke to the class, and it's to my knowledge that he tells the same story every semester now, and informed them that the only evident way to cheat in his class was to have an identical twin brother, but now they know to look for that. Also, hats are no longer allowed when taking the exam. I was not punished for it because he said I helped him out and all I did was get my brother a B, so it made him laugh. TLDR, took my twin psych exam for him in a strict class, 2 IDs needed, got a TARS number, never called, pranked my brother this way. Professor finds out about switch via small world, not punished. Usually I just lurk on Reddit, but this caught my eye, so I made an account to share my story. My identical twin brother wasn't the most dedicated student in high school. While I was focused on getting into the college of my dreams, USC, he would often skip class to go hang out with his friends and do things that I didn't find to be quite beneficial to my goal of success. Well, his ditching habits got out of hand. It was in the second month of senior year of high school, and his zero-period English teacher told him that he had 14 absences, and that if he missed one more zero-period class, he would fail the class, and would not be able to graduate. This really threw my brother's life into gear, and he began to come to school early and put his life back together. One day, it was 5 minutes before zero period had started, and I got a call from my bro. His car broke down, and he was stuck 2 miles away from school. He had been trying to fix it for the past 10 minutes, and couldn't figure out what happened. I sensed the urgency in his voice, and knew he wasn't dissing me. I agreed to take his place and miss my ceramics zero period, and take his English class. The only issue was that his class was on the other side of the school. By the time I went to his locker, grabbed his books, and ran to his class, I was about a minute late. I rushed in, and saw the teacher give a sigh of relief when he saw me. So basically, I saved my brother from not graduating. No one noticed that it wasn't him, and it was me, but I do remember this one girl coming up to me at lunch, and asking why I changed clothes. Later found out that she was in the zero period class. Hope you enjoyed my story, and first post on Reddit. Edit. Thanks for the gold, stranger. Not me, but my dad and uncle are twins. Just a few years ago my dad fell off a ladder removing Christmas lights and broke his shoulder. After surgery dad had to go to physical therapy for a while. A few months in, my uncle comes up from out of town for some reason I can't remember, and dad hatches a plan to be miraculously healed. He tells my uncle all the names of his receptionists and therapist. He wanted me to go in and film it, but I was afraid it would ruin the joke. So I'm told that my uncle goes in and starts going through stretches while the therapist looks amazed. She says, "My word, I've never seen such quick improvement. I never thought you would be able to lift your arm over your head again." What changed since last session? My dad's family are a bunch of wise-ass, so my uncle starts telling the therapist about hearing of a home remedy by rubbing ostrich oil on his shoulder. Meanwhile, my dad goes up to the receptionist for his appointment and apologizes for being late. The lady just looks confused and says, "But you already came in." My dad just looks confused back at her as she takes him to his room. I was told that the therapist gasped and took a triple take when she saw them both. Another shorter story is when my dad tried to withdraw $50 from my uncle's bank account. My uncle owns a small business and goes into the bank daily, so the teller recognized my dad. He goes up and asks for $50 from his account, and the teller just gives it to him. This was a while ago before security was all the rage. He gives the money back and tells about him being a twin. The teller looked really embarrassed and was probably worried about his job. Well, let me just tell you, I've done multiple job interviews for my twin brother. It definitely has advantages. One day, my brother got an interview at a rather large company in California. He was living in Washington at the time, and I was in California, and not to say that I'm better at interviewing, though I am, but clearly it was more convenient for me to attend the interview. Truthfully, I wasn't too busy the day of his interview, and I had the mentality that I had nothing to lose by going and acting like someone else, which I did. It was a group interview and I decided to be the annoying kiss-ass in the room. I tried to stand out by raising my hand a lot and asking stupid faking questions. I spoke up a lot and made kiss-ass comments and stayed behind after the interview to shake the hands of the managers who conducted the interviews. Sure enough, I get a call from my twin the next morning and he said, "Hey man, I need you to be there at 12 PM to do second interview." Luckily, I was also free that day. Well, he got hired and drove down from Washington to California to start work 3 days after the second interview. It was some real parent trap sheet, like explaining what people looked like, names, all that stuff. But no one noticed. Perks of being an identical twin. And that's one of many interviews I've done for him to get him jobs. My twin and I have swapped places successfully in many situations, but the most recent was probably the best. My brother is an adjunct professor at a local university teaching web design. None of his students knew he had a twin. On April 1st, I came in to open the class instead of him. I casually said hi to about 20 students. discussed questions about a project, making it up as I went, and even discussed a student's grade before opening the lesson. No one noticed anything out of the ordinary. About 5 minutes into this, my brother threw open the classroom door and stepped in. He pointed to me and said, "Who is this imposter?" We didn't know how they would react, but we thought it would be a lot louder. Instead, most of the students' mouths dropped open, and they just stared back and forth in complete confusion and terror in a few cases. Finally, I broke in and said that I was teaching my class, as usual, and who was this guy interrupting? He dashed up to the front and said it was his class and I should leave. We then asked the students whose class it was, and about half got it right for bonus points and half got it wrong. Either way, we clearly made their day, and we haven't been able to play this trick again for the past few years, because it still gets talked about. The characters: Keith, twin brother of Kevin. He's a good guy. Kevin, twin brother of Keith. He's a sheepbag. Ashley, my cousin. She was a bit of her at 15 and faked around. Ashley is at a party and talking to Kevin. She's kinda into him and his badass attitude. Well, anyway, something happens and she has to get up and go outside. She's outside of a good 15 minutes. At this point, Kevin gets up and goes over to his truck. At the same time, Keith comes and sits in the same chair as his brother was with a beer and is talking when Ashley comes back in. She sits down and starts talking to Keith, but she thinks it's Kevin. She doesn't even know Keith. Anyway, very quickly she progresses to making out with him, and they end up having sex. She got pregnant. She goes to Kevin and says, "You got me pregnant." Kevin says, "No, you faked my brother Keith." She goes, "Did I?" He goes, "Yay, but I didn't care about you, so I didn't say anything." Keith turned out to be a really awesome husband for her and a great father. Kevin is currently serving out his time for armed robbery in prison. Ashley faked the wrong guy, which turned out to be the best choice. My sister and I are not twins, but frequently mistaken as twins, or mistaken for one another. When we visited each other at our out-of-state colleges, there would always be some case of mistaken identity mishap to occasion stick in my mind. First time, this was the first time my sister visited me at my school in DC. She was maybe 17, still in high school. While I was in class, she went to the campus Starbucks by herself. A casual acquaintance of mine who was really just a pre-gaming / party / shots friend thought that she was me, didn't say hi or anything, but just went in for the bear hug. He's a really loud, large presence, endearingly inappropriate kinda guy. She thought she was being faked with by a DC vagrant of sorts, and told me that a mentally challenged person tried to fuck with her in Starbucks. It took me like 2 weeks to find out at this, till the next time I saw my friend, and he was like, "Why were you so horrified and psychotic the other day?" Bahaha. Second time, I visited my sister a year later at college. She was big time sorority girl, with the choice of rager being your run-of-the-mill huge basement throbbing EDM, dimly lit raunchy cesspool of code gyrating. All people there were friends with my sister. I was wasted and dancing with a guy for a long time when he started making out with me. Casual dancer flommakiert. I see out of the corner of my eye my sister dancing and cheering around us. Then the guy aggressively jumps back like 4 feet, looking back and forth at us in hysterics. He thought I was my sister the whole time, and he was so faking confused that it really messed with his head. He was wasted and just like couldn't comprehend the scenario. Bahaha. My twin sister Amy always bullied me since we were kids. Hit me, called me names, took stuff from me, lied about me, and made people think I was a bad person. We're identical, but she's a lot more aggressive than me. I don't know why she doesn't like me either. I'm really shy, and I never did anything to her. Well, I signed up for this game show to try to get away from her. A lame ripoff of Survivor 14's. She found my audition tape and sent in her own, bad-mouthing me in it. The producers liked the sibling rivalry angle, so they accepted us both. When we got there, she immediately started bullying me as usual. She told the host and other contestants to call me Same Y instead of Sammy, so we rhyme, and because I'm the same as her, get it, and they did. I have a hard time standing up for myself. She also convinced everyone that I was a bad person, a liar, and they shouldn't trust me, and they believed her like people always do. We were on the same team, and after a few episodes we had a water balloon challenge. Well, everyone else on our team got eliminated, and we were the last two left. She ran out of balloons and tried to take mine, breaking it and eliminating us both. So then she lied to our team and told them it was my fault. Well, I decided to finally get her back. I tricked her into eating some local poison ivy type stuff, and she had a reaction and couldn't talk. Then I pretended to be her and said Sammy must be sick, and since I was eliminated anyway she was taken away and sent to medical. I stayed in the game as her for a few more days until the ruse was discovered and we were both sent home. But it was so fun not having her around for a few days and getting treated like a normal person. My dad and uncle are identical twins, and they tell stories about how they'd chase friends up and down stairs in their school and always win, and the like. There's another story, though, that I just love. College. My dad is in mathematics. He's very good at lots of subjects, but absolutely sucks in physics. So he's pulling an all-nighter, studying for a test the next day with a friend of his, sees how fake they are, they just won't make it. So he goes, "Dude, forget it, we're faked." His friend's face lights up, he goes, "Well, I'm definitely faked, but you can still make it." Calls my uncle, which is in engineering, top of the class, went on to get a PhD in faking nuclear physics, and ask him if he'd do the test for my dad. My uncle goes for it the next day, takes the test, forging my dad's signature. "Hey, uncle, sorry if you get arrested now." They check the result in a few days, and he got a 9.5. Brazilian here, we don't do the A, B, C thing for test scores, we use numbers. Well, now my dad's clear, and will not fail the class, except my uncle gets pissed off saying that was a 10, and whoever was grading was wrong. He wants to go to their teacher's office and complain. Well, the ending is not that awesome. My dad just convinced my uncle not to do anything about it, and went on to graduate in mathematics. Still love that story, though. Thanks for this thread, op, it's made me laugh. God damn it. The one Ask Reddit where I actually can contribute, and I didn't see it until way late. Edit. Okay, I'll stop being a Grinch and tell the story too involving class switching. Sometime during elementary school, I think 5th grade, we were planning to switch classes for April Fool's Day. But since we did it 2 years ago, everyone was still expecting it, teachers included. So to pull a Reddit switch, we ended up switching classes on the day before, March 31st. Made it an entire class without anyone knowing. A more recent example was during college. My brother and I went to different colleges. He was fine arts, and I was science. Completely opposite majors. And our spring break weeks were different, so I would visit him for a few days each year. I went to his photography course, and took his place for about 15 minutes. The professor called me Twin B's name and I basically used some context clues to get away with it for a bit. After about 15 minutes my brother comes out from behind a rolling chalkboard and the rest of the class just starts laughing. They were in on it. Also, I liked using the gym, so I just borrowed my brother's ID to enter the gym and then get back through dorm security on the way back. The old swipe and show to security booth. Obviously the photo matched my face. Finally, this past year my roommate's friend arrived while I was in the shower and my brother was in town. She had met me before and was talking to him as if he was me. I walk out of the bathroom in my towel and she looks over and does the classic double take what the fuck thing. Haha, I thought she knew I had a twin. Not as wild as other stories, but still classic identical twin moments. Also, we are definitely identical. Hooray 23 and me. In high school, my app psych teacher told me about an ingenious plan of a twin student he had. Let's name one Ally and the other Aj for the sake of this story. He has a student named Ally in his first period psychology class who would, on test days, ask him if she could have the rest of the day to study and just take the test after school. Sure, no problem with him. True to her word, she would arrive at 3:05 promptly after school ended, take her test and leave. The teacher had no issue with this routine because she passed every test, and if a couple extra hours was what she needed, so be it. After a semester of this routine, he is revealed to the scheme. He is lounging around in the teacher's break room when he catches a couple words of gossip concerning his student Ally. Curious, he asks the teacher what she is talking about. She's slightly bewildered. Didn't you know? The two twins, Ally and Aj, have been asking teachers to take their tests after school. Whoever is best at the subject would take the test for the other. Now my teacher is a pretty nice guy and knows almost all the students of the senior class. Those were the kids that would tend to take app psych. He was actually surprised that Ally had a twin and described to me how weird it was to not even know his student had a sister, let alone a twin. Anyhow, after hearing this news he decides to put it to the test. The next exam they had, he told Ally that she had to take the quiz that day in class because he wouldn't be available after school and needed to grade them as soon as possible. Sure enough, she fails the test. He never really finished the story after that. He just laughed it off and congratulated them on the devious plan, but told them that this was no longer going to be the arrangement. As a side note, I think he actually made Ally retake all the tests over the course of the next semester and she passed with a B. Identical twin here. My brother and I look startlingly similar and people often get confused. During college we went to different universities, but would visit each other quite often. My girlfriend at the time would always say how strange it was when we all were hanging out, since we looked so much like each other. So anyway, me and my brother get to scheming and decide he should visit and come to a party with me and my friends and wear the same outfit. He arrives and we are both dressed to the nines in 3-piece suits, the exact same down to the tie. We all head out on the town and people are double taking everywhere we go. We hit the bar and have a couple of drinks and then head to a house party. When we get to the party my bro goes in first while I park the car and everyone is greeting him as if he was me. He just plays it off and goes with it. We made a point to not be seen side by side throughout the night. As you can guess, everyone thinks that I'm basically all over the place at the same time at this party. News spreads fast that I was seen cheating on my girl with two different girls making out in the living room and parking lot. Finally me and my bro throw the final wildcard we had planned for quite some time. I tell my girl to meet me in the bedroom upstairs and I will be up in just a second because I had to grab something from the car. So as you guessed, my bro heads up to the room. Our plan was to pretend that he was trying to con her into thinking he was me and we would burst into a huge fake fist fight and then in the end a fit of laughter. So I wait a couple minutes and then head upstairs. When I get to the bedroom I knock a couple times to let my bro know it's me. He says something along the lines of, "Hey man, we are in here, get lost." I burst in and am like, what the fuck is going on here? What I didn't prepare myself for is that my brother would have my girlfriend, but naked and going to town on her. All of a sudden the fight was a real thing and the stupid prank was out the window. I tackled my bro with murder in my eyes. We were wrestling around on the floor while my girl screamed her head off. I finally pinned my bro down and with tears in my eyes asked him how he could do it to me. He didn't know what to say and I could tell he felt bad and was quite drunk. The only thing he could muster to say was "I need about Trifidi." It was about this time that I realized I didn't actually have a twin brother. In fact, I was an only child. This son of a bitch faking my girlfriend was in fact a plesiosaur from the prehistoric era. I screamed, "You no good cheating bastard, you dirty old Loch Ness monster, you get the fuck away from me and my girl, you rotten asshole, I ain't never giving you no Trifidi." Me and my girl broke up that night and I never forgave her for that. I mean, even before she knew who that bastard really was, she admitted to thinking it was really my twin and not me. My twin sister and I are pretty identical. We went to different colleges, but would take turns visiting each other once a semester. One time when I was visiting her, we thought it'd be funny if I went to one of her classes. There was some good reason why she couldn't go, but I went in her place, so she'd still get credit for attendance. I think there was a sign-in sheet or something, so I signed in and sat down with one of her friends. We get to talking, and her friend tells me that this class sucks and the prof just reads from a PowerPoint that is posted online. I think that's dumb and a waste of time, and convince her friend that we should just skip and go smoke a bowl or something. So we do, and have a great time, but are late coming back to the building. My sister was gonna pick me up after class. So she's waiting for me and super pissed that I skipped and convinced her friend to do so as well. Now we laugh about it, but she was not too pleased with me at the time. We also like to play tricks on our mom, where we'll text her the same thing at the same time and pretend it wasn't planned. We think we are really funny. Also sometimes when we fly together, we switch IDs in the security line just for kicks. And then there was the bubble gum incident. We have lots. Not a switch, but a weird twin thing. One time we were playing Battleship and set up our boards almost identical to each other. My brother and I used to be very close. We would do everything together, and it took quite a toll on our social lives. We would occasionally do the old switcheroo with our teachers, and as we got older we got better at it. Neither of us had the grades to pursue higher education, but since we had both acted a lot in school plays, we had a taste of the theatrics. We began to study showmanship as we attended live acts, watched films, and even as young 20-somethings, we reenacted everything. One day we caught a magic show. This was something pretty special. No fog displays, no lights, no tigers, just humans, contraptions, assistants and human acting. We became obsessed with magic and illusions. We began studying everything. Sleight of hand, card tricks. We started seeing how far we could take the sawing in half gig to make it truly interesting. We mastered the bunny in the hat trick by actually reversing it. We would take a canary, place it into a small cage, and collapse the cage in front of the audience, seemingly killing the bird, but of course, we'd bring the bird back to applause. We ended up moving to a larger city because we felt the need to build our audience and develop a larger act. It was at this time when we began developing our greatest illusion ever. It consumed a great deal of our time, so we began to act as one. I would perform my act solo while he was working on our grand illusion. The next night we would switch. We became very famous, opening for one of our idols before he retired. He actually began mentoring us, but at this point, we had kind of had the charade going on long enough to decide that we would see if we could fool him into believing that we are only one person. Rapidly, our illusions improved, as did our social lives. We both found wonderful women. I married a great girl, and actually had a child with her, while he was more of the flirtatious type and kind of started banging our assistants. With all this happening, keep in mind that everyone thought we were the same person. We did make a pact, never get intimate with the other's partner. To the best of my knowledge he kept true to his word. So our mentor paired us up with another magician, who was quite the expert, but a little egotistical. He brought his own assistant who he was also in a relationship with. We had a horrible mishap with an escape illusion and actually his assistant died as a part of the act. It was humiliating, and it killed our act, while turning him against us. Unable to sell out a venue, my brother and I tried our best with street magic, while we perfected our grand illusion, which was nearly complete. Unfortunately, I was badly injured in an illusion featuring a prop gun. I had a good piece of my hand blown off, including a finger. Our mentor advised against this, and our poor judgment left me the victim of some smarters who wanted to act tough by dropping a pebble into the barrel of the gun. This is where our act nearly fell apart. We were no longer identical. It was here where my brother showed an incredible level of solidarity. He asked that I cut off his finger too. Bewildered, I refused. He insisted and appealed to my passion for finishing our greatest illusion ever. I reluctantly obliged, and I helped remove his finger. It was brutal, and I don't forgive myself for it to this day. As we became busier, we developed a type of disguise and backstory for the other twin, so we could be in public together. It worked. The guy in disguise just stayed aloof and silent and the star of the show did all the work. We'd switch of course. Finally, after years of hard work, practice, and careful planning, the illusion was complete. Our illusion was ready. We performed our illusion at the end of an otherwise mediocre act. It was executed flawlessly. I walked through a doorway and instantly I appeared meters away in a different doorway. We called it the Transported Man. Thunderous applause. The best show anyone has ever seen. Howdy it's all over the place. We remained silent. Not long after, Wolverine framed my brother for murder, and my brother was executed. On the day of his death, I visited Wolverine and killed him. Tesla did some crazy science shit and I became Batman. When I attended my identical twin brother's wedding engagement, I showed up late. It was a group of about 100 heavily bussed folks, mostly the bride's side of the family, all having a good time. I had been away for 6 months and had not met any of the in-laws yet, so I had no clue who anybody was, but they knew that I existed. They just had no clue how similar I looked to my brother. So I walked into the crowded house and made my way to the bathroom, only to be stopped by a group of women who I had never seen previously. About 10 or so women stopped me and asked me, "So, how did you propose to her?" They looked at me and addressed me with a familiar tone, like we had already met. At first I was surprised at the question, but realized what was happening. Of course, these drunk fools think I'm my brother. So, naturally, I decided to throw my brother under the bus for funsies. I replied back with a non-coherent response consisting of many brothers, dudes, and kept saying it was super romantic. Dude. I got down on one knee and made our dreams come true. I had never before called an 82-year-old woman dude until that night. I quickly made my exit to the backyard, where the grilled meats and beer were assembled. I thought I had made a masterful ninja escape, but alas, my sister-in-law later found out. That was probably the funnest twin scenario I've had so far. Not a twin, but have a brother almost no one can tell me apart from. Once at a club with a group that included my brother, I was introduced to a female impersonator. I chatted her up, bought her a couple drinks, and told her I had always wanted to fuck a drag queen. She was down. I saw my brother approaching and excused myself to go to the bathroom. My unsuspecting brother, who never did well with the ladies, was accosted by this stunning blonde who talks to him like she knows him and wants to fuck him. She offers to take him out to her car and he says yes. At that moment he thought the twin thing was working in his favor and he was going to get lucky with a girl who thought he was me. As they're heading out of the club, my conscience gets the best of me and I send over some friends for the cork block. But my brother, who had had a few, refuses to be blocked. So I finally intervene, convince her she's so drunk she's seeing double, and she takes off. My brother was crushed and angry that I would step on his action, doesn't speak to me for months. We eventually made up, but I never let on what exactly had happened. For 20 years now he has thought I'm a cork blocking prick of an older brother, but I'd rather he think that than know I almost set him up for a crying game type reveal. My twin sister and I were inseparable, like most are, growing up. When we got to 11th grade, my sister got her first boyfriend. Needless to say, I became distraught and practically depressed when she started spending so much time with him. I had felt that I lost my sister and she had completely forgotten about me. I sat down with her and talked to her about it. She completely understood and decided to have her boyfriend, let's call him Tom, over to our place more often. I became the ultimate third wheel. My sister, Tom, and I would end up going to the movies, getting dinner, and going on walks together. I always secretly thought Tom was incredibly cute, but I never let my sister know it. One glorious Friday night, all three of us had hit the Burnett's handle especially hard. Later into the night, we were all drifting towards sleep on the couch, and were on the verge of passing out. Before going to bed, Tom drunkenly walked up the stairs to use the restroom. I could tell that he was wasted. My sister's bedroom was upstairs, while mine was on the ground level. I looked over at her and realized she was passed out. In my drunken stupor, I found myself fantasizing about Tom and I immediately started getting wet for him. I don't know what I was thinking, but I walked up the stairs. I met Tom as he was exiting the bathroom and went in for the most passionate, drunken, hottest kiss of my life. I led him to my sister's bedroom. Tom faked me like an animal on my twin sister's bed that night. Tom came 3 times and we faked passionately hard for nearly 2 solid hours. To this day, it is still the best sex I've ever had. Afterwards, we settled into bed, and as soon as Tom passed out, I slinked out of his arms back downstairs to fall asleep next to my sister on the couch. The next morning, my sister was upset at Tom for not carrying her up to bed. He was extremely hungover and claimed not to have remembered a thing past 11 PM. I feigned ignorance and also claimed to have blacked out that night. It was the greatest lie I've ever told, just like this entire post. A buddy of mine who's much older told me a story of his roommate getting vengeance for his twin in Virginia on the dude who jumped him. Dude's twin went to school on the East Coast and he came out to visit. Well, the reason was he heard his East Coast twin had been assaulted by some faking drunk cunt and dude ended up getting community service and 1 month in jail. Dude was a fuck up meth head and had been arrested for a lot of minor shit, nothing ever in the scope of hard time, a couple of weeks here and there. So anyway, they're out having a beer and shit and they spot the faker go into a diner across the street. Keep in mind these dudes are hard for each other, also were slightly buzzed and came up with a plan for vengeance. Twin that was assaulted went halfway across the city to a bar and bought people drinks, got a little loud and drew attention to himself. The West Coast brother took a bat from his brother's car, played in college, and took it to the dude's window, then beat the dude 3 to 4 good times and bolted down a few alleys and took a bus home and walked the rest of the way. Charges were pressed, but there were testimonies in place that kept his brother from going to jail. And some shit like 2 months passed and the final decision was the dude had been attacked by someone else, probably a gangster or drug dealer that had an axe to grind. The morning after the assault his brother jumped on a plane and noped the fuck out of there. Pretty faking solid work, if you ask me. I'm not a twin, but I have a twin swap story. I'm a teacher, and a few years ago I was teaching a night school class. Since it was only 2x a week, attendance policies were very strict. Any more than 2 absences, excused or not, result in an automatic withdrawal from the course. Things are going along great until just about 2 weeks from the last day of the course. I was approached by Angela. Angela says she has a confession to make. I ask what it is. Apparently she's not actually Angela. She's Amanda, Angela's twin sister. Angela has some issue, medical, can't remember exactly what it was, but it required her to be in hospital for an extended amount of time. She's apparently okay, in that she's awake and functioning, just needing to be in bed, and she's still doing all the schoolwork that Amanda was bringing to her every week, and then returning to me. Amanda had completed a few of the in-class assignments, and felt guilty, and wanted to explain her situation. To clarify, this was an elective grade 11/12 course. A lot of students use it to meet the graduation requirement for having X number of credits and nothing more. Essentially, it was a fluff course, a bird course, a Crayola class, whatever you want to call it. Do I ruin this girl's chance of graduation? I looked at Amanda Angela and simply said, tell your sister I hope she's better soon. See you next week, Angela. She passed and I actually saw her later in the summer, Angela, not Amanda, and she gave me a hug and thanked me for letting her graduate with her friends and classmates. At least I think it was Angela. Wrong? Maybe. I don't care. By far the best one I have done. I had arthroscopic surgery on my right shoulder to repair a torn labrum. My mother drove me to therapy 3 times a week. Rough stuff. My arm was a useless vestigial noodle. 5 weeks after surgery, I'm barely strong enough to start raising my arm in front of me. I send him into my therapy. I train him how to keep his arm limp, what the personalities and reactions of each therapist are, and what things to say. He had my bag, my book, and my phone. Therapist, Mr. Insulinator? Insulinators bro. Yep. I have a new exercise I want to show you. Therapist, okay, before or after the arm bike? My brother immediately drops from a standing position onto his hands and starts ripping out push-ups. 10 push-ups later the therapist is screaming. She begs him to stop, telling him he can't do that. He says, but I just did. Look, I'm fine. The gears are stuck in her brain. Had she just witnessed a miracle? Everyone is staring now, trying to put these 2 puzzle pieces together that don't seem to fit. The therapist has had this exact surgery before. It is not possible to be doing a push-up at 5 weeks, or is it? I walk out from behind the corner, where I was hiding. She curses loudly in front of the 20 people, who are now staring intently on this strange miraculously healed man, and everyone laughs for the remaining hour. TLDR, I sent my healthy twin to my post-shoulder surgery therapy, therapist sheet a brick, when he rapped out push-ups as I appeared miraculously healed. Not me personally, but 2 of my longest running friends, known since we were 13, we are 29 and 30 now, are identical twins. To a T. If you don't know them, then you'll have a hard time telling them apart. Over the 17 years or so I've known them, they've done basically every exploit a twin could do. Let me start a list. One of the twins got his license suspended for a DUI. No problem though. He was pulled over again for speeding whilst actually suspended, had his twin's extra license card, his wallet was lost, got his ID replaced, found his wallet afterwards while moving, got a warning for speeding. Girls, these skeezy fakers. It's kind of gross how many girls thought they were sleeping with one, but was the other. Movies, when we were younger, one would pay, go inside, go back out for a smoke, and tell the dude working the booth to remember his face cause he left his ticket in his jacket back in the seat and didn't want to go get it. Q in brother, just walks past different clothes even. Give the dude a nod and walk on in. Few minutes later, original bro walks back with ticket in hand and little joke about how he remembered it this time. This has worked every single time, except once or twice where the guy working the booth told him to go back and get his ticket before originally leaving. Tests in school, Alan did every math exam, while Jeremy did every English exam. Genius. The other would just cover the other in the class they had at the moment. Job interviews, Jeremy is far more eloquent than Alan. So Jeremy would just go, do the interview for him. Give Al the bullet points of the interview in case anything came back up. There are more, I'm spacing on at the moment. I'll edit if I can think of anything else. My twin and I didn't really get into the swapping places thing, but we have our own special scenario that causes its own trouble. We have the same first name. It caused a minimal amount of errors while in school because the admin got used to it. Although typically every couple of years would be new teachers who didn't hear about us yet. We now have classes at the same college campus and both work on the same military base, did not join at the same time. Funny enough, the military base is the place having the biggest issue with it, because a lot of their systems apparently operate on just first and last name. Edit 1. Actually, here is a story I heard today. Someone I know up in Calm said they had their annual meeting, and we always come up. They forget whether it's correct or mistaken that there are 2 entries in the system with the same name. Add to that there were new people just hearing it for the first time. Random guy 1. So what's up with this? These 2 guys have the same name? Random guy 2. No, man. It's a mistake. It's just one person in the system twice. Friend, no, they are 2 different people. I know them. Random guy 3. Yeah, but it's not those names. It's like Alex, Ann, Alan, whatever, it's 2 RS. Friend, no, they go by random guy 2. Are you sure it isn't just some mistake? Friend, stop. I actually know them. I hang out with them. They go by, but underscore luckily, and ass underscore fortunate. I am the expert on this matter. A few minutes later random guy 4. You know what's crazy? Not only do they have the same last name, but they look so alike. My twin and I would try to disturb strangers by having creepy conversations that sounded like we were finishing each other's sentences. Think the twins from BioShock Infinite. Though the advent of adulthood has made us far less prone to do this, we can still loosely remember one and type it out here. Written as a script because, well, we had scripts, theatrical idiots that we were. Most of them involved ganging up on some poor unsuspecting person, up, then ignoring him as we bicker. You doing good? Up, yeah, IF, well, I'm sorry, F, he's doing well, not good, unless he's badman. You're a pedantic ass, and you know it, and there's no point in F being unnecessarily concerned with syntax in easy conversation. Yeah. Regardless, I had hoped you held yourself to a higher standard and bothered myself with appeasing the gods of semantics. No thank you. F. Oh, it doesn't take any more effort, and it makes you seem like an asshole. F. I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say something along the lines of collected, or intellectual, or removed. Words that, may I remind you, are synonymous most of the time with asshole. Dearest C's. F. Then it's some feat for you to be the latter without being the former. Brother mine at this point. We glare at each other for 3 Mississippis. Then he slings an arm around me, and we leave the by now severely confused unsuspecting person that had been trying to butt in. In high school, I used to play football with a set of identical twins. They were both big, tall, muscular guys. Probably 6 feet 4 inches, 260 lbs. They both played offensive line. Our senior year, one of them decided to sign up for cross country and everyone was puzzled. He didn't exactly have the build for a cross country runner. He said he was doing it to stay in shape. So for the first meet, a lot of people showed up to see him run. There he was in a tight tank top and shorty shorts towering over all of the other runners warming up. He was double the size of most of them. So he lines up to run with all of the other kids. They fire the gun and he takes off in a dead sprint. He ran full steam the length of this 100-yard open field and disappeared into the woods. Everyone was laughing hysterically because the rest of the kids were pacing themselves for a 5-mile run, but he, the largest person there, was emptying the gas tank for a huge sprint. There is no way he could keep up that pace, right? A few minutes later he emerged from the other end of the field, and with no one even close to him, he is still in a full sprint. You could hear his huge feet tearing at the earth as he went by like a racehorse. He was sweating heavily, face red, breathing hard. Surely he must be about to stop. He had just sprinted 1 mile and had 4 more to go. But lap after lap, he emerged from the woods and sprinted past the crowd and back into the woods until he crossed the finish line in first place by an enormous margin. He set the course record. Immediately everyone began to speculate. I guess it's just because of his long legs, or these football guys must be in tremendous shape. But one person, the cross-country coach, figured it out. When the big guy sprinted way out in front of everyone, he left them out of sight, which was key to his plan. His identical brother, wearing the same cross-country uniform, was hiding in a hunting blind, waiting in the woods for him. As soon as brother A got remotely close, brother B would take off in a sprint and brother A would get in the blind, rest, get a drink of water, and wait for his brother. Rinse, repeat. The cross-country coach kept it pretty quiet. He confronted brother A and said, "I won't let you run in the future unless I can see brother B." Brother A basically said that it was just a joke and they had no intention of running the whole season, so he quit. But we have a hall at the high school that is dedicated to sports achievements called the Hall of Fame. His picture is still hanging there with his record listed. This was about 17 years ago. Okay, I'm way too late to this party to get good visibility on this, and I made a throwaway for it. I'm in the Marines, my twin brother is in the army and stupid. I love him to death and he isn't unintelligent, but man, he dumb. He just constantly makes poor choices. One such poor choice was spending an afternoon with Mary Jane on the week he knew his unit would be doing a 10% random drug test. His reasoning was, I got tested the last 2 random pulls so it won't be me. Fast forward to that Friday, and I get a frantic call from him, "Dude, I got pulled for the test. Can you please come take it?" Okay, crisis revolution. Would I feel bad for him if he popped on the urinalysis? Not really. He should have been smarter, but he's my twin, goddammit, and you don't leave a man behind. "What time is your test?" I asked. "I don't know. Most of the others have gone." I told them I couldn't pee. So I floor it to his house, throw on one of his uniforms, floor it to the base. We meet behind his BN office. He gives me his ID, doesn't notice him wearing the wrong rank. I go into the office. Dude administering test asks why I'm wearing the wrong rank. Oh, one of the other soldiers must be playing a joke on me. Get yelled at by some SGT first class. Don't give a fuck. I have pee to deliver. Go into the head. Relieve myself into cup. Go back outside, handcuff to angry man. Wink at him because my twin put me in this situation and he has to pay somehow. Walk down the hall, turn half back around and give SGT first class another wink and the guns. Turn corner in hall and run. My twin brother and I swapped places for a final exam when we were seniors in high school. The night before my chemistry exam. Chemistry was the most difficult class at school and I really didn't give two shits about it. Since I was planning on a career in business, my brother asks me to go to a party with him. I tell him that I need to study. He ends up persuading me to join him by promising that he would prep me for the test since he had already taken it and knew all the questions/answers. We end up getting back home at 4 in the morning. Upon arrival I start beaching. How the fuck am I going to study for this test now? What the fuck? I'm completely screwed. He responds, I'm sorry bro, but what exactly do you want me to do? Take it for you? I think for a second and reply, wow, that's not a bad idea. Turns out he had a history exam at the same time as my chemistry test, so we ended up switching places. So next morning, he puts on my clothes, and I put on his. I wore glasses, he wore contacts, so he had to wear my glasses, and I had to remove them. Contacts would not cooperate with me back then. 15 minutes before the exams, we go around asking our closest friends who we were. Everyone we asked were fooled, so we felt pretty confident going through with it. Long story short, he ends up setting the curve. Needless to say, there were a lot of pissed off kids. This wasn't intentional but entertaining nevertheless. My twin and I joined the army at the same time, over 12 years ago now. We were in different companies in recruit training, so that was fine. But we ended up being posted to the same unit after recruit and specialist training. One of the sergeant majors met us off the bus, and conducting roll call, assigning everyone to their respective companies. We both had the same initial, I'm Tom, he's Tim, and last name. Private T. Hookton, Alpha. The SM only called one of us. At some stage he had crossed one of us off assuming a typo. At the end I approached him and asked for my company assignment. He proceeded to rip my face off for not listening. He literally wouldn't let me speak. So I shrugged and trudged off to Alpha. It took a full 4 hours before some corporal realized that there were 2 of us. He marched us together to the SM's office, gathering a bunch of other SNCOs along the way. He told me to walk in first. The SM saw me and lost his lid. Private faking Hookton, I faking told you you're faking company already, get the F. At this point the corporal marched my brother into the office. I think we broke the SM that day. He went very quiet. Suffice to say, I was assigned to Echo Company. New Year's Eve 2011. My brother and I are at the same party at our friend's place, probably around 60 to 70 people there, give or take. My bro had been hooking up with this girl, we'll call her J, for a little while, but they had since stopped doing so, and each moved on. No hard feelings. J was a solid 7.5 on the Richter scale, and was also at the night party. I guess I should tell you, now that J had an identical twin sister, RR and I had a very mild sexy encounter in our past, but nothing like what my bro and J had going on. From here on out, I'll just lay out the facts, so you may interpret them as you wish. As it was nearing midnight, J and I met on the basement stairs. The basement was nice, and so some of the party was down some up, and promptly began going at it. To this day, I cannot say with 100% certainty if I knew that it was J not R, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to hear that she thought I was my bro. I asked my bro what he thought about it, and he said he was disappointed he hadn't found R, or he'd otherwise have made a pass at her. Not necessarily on purpose, but amusing nonetheless. Edit. Yes, my bro and I are identical twins. Edit. One more. Bro and I went to an all-guys Catholic high school for our freshman year. Like many all-boys Catholic schools, we had an affiliated, all-girls, sister school. For a little while we both had girlfriends who went to the sister school. Mount Street Mary's Sluts on the slope/hose on the hill, but I digress, who were very close friends. They used to do that thing where they'd go to the bathroom together. It just so happened that the door for the room we were in was behind the couches we're sitting on, and so upon approaching the couch one could see just the back of our heads. We switched shirts and switched spots promptly. Our girlfriends came back from whatever the hell girls do in there together and sat down next to who they thought was their respective boyfriend/twin. Nothing spectacular happened as a result, just much laughter, embarrassment, and validation because they always insisted they could tell us apart, no matter the situation. Needless to say, we proved them wrong that night. Not a twin, but this happened to me in high school. Had huge chemical test third period, but teacher was out, so we had a substitute basically babysit the class during the test. I killed that test, like 98% of 200 questions. A few days later, after the test was graded and the teacher was back, he called me out for cheating. The sub had apparently left a detailed note that had singled me out by name with a description of nearly exactly what I was probably wearing that day, jackets, hats, and what I look like. She said that I took a bathroom break during the test, took a while, and then after class a chemical book was found in the bathroom. The chemical teacher, after giving me ample dressing down, gave me a shot to retake the test. I was a nearly model student, and others in the class disputed it, and of course I did significantly worse. I had to take it in his tiny cramped office sitting at his desk across from him on the spot. Couple weeks later I run across the sub in another class, and flip on her. She's confused. I'm pissed and I make a scene, until she'll go see the chemical teacher. Turns out there is another student in the class before mine. He looks very similar to me, and if you remove a letter from my last name, it would be his name. We even had the same jacket. TLDR, guy looked like me, and with a name that, by removing a letter from mine, make his, got caught cheating on a test. I had to take the repercussions. Twin reporting and with a drunken college story. My brother and I were at a college party, wasted of course, and I happened to get lucky that night with a random girl. After I got her to my bedroom, I guess some sort of consciousness dawned on me, because I decided I didn't want to catch an STD, although I still wanted to get off. So I managed to put a pillow over my head as she went down on me. I told her how amazing she is, I want this for the rest of my life, how it's the best BJ I've ever had, etc. So she got really into it. Eventually I got off, and she got nothing in return. This obviously made her a bit frustrated, because nothing came out of it for her. So before she went to clean herself up, she told me that when she gets back from the bathroom I better bang her. Of course, I responded. This is where it gets interesting. So as she went to the bathroom I quickly threw off the bedsheets and ran downstairs to the party. I grabbed my brother to tell him there is a girl in the room upstairs, if he wants her. He was drunk so obviously agreed. Now, we looked pretty similar at the time, and to a complete stranger I doubt she would know the difference. At the time, I didn't even think that his manhood may have been bigger or smaller, different, whatever, yet some reason the only thing that dawned at me at the time was that I had bigger earrings. He had small little stud diamonds, and I had larger gauge piercings. So being the idiots that we are, I took my big earrings out, and we jammed them into his small piercings. Meanwhile we were at it, the poor girl was so upset in the bathroom over what happened that she walked right past us. The funny thing is, my brother went running after he apologizing and sweet talking her to come back, pretending to me. Man, it would have been much more interesting if he actually went through with it, although I feel like that would be bad karma for life. Not me, but a friend. She worked on an oncology floor in a children's hospital. There were these two little boys who were about the same age who looked so alike and were friends with one another since they were on the floor for such a long period of time. They were about 4, so mischievous. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Well, one day they decided to play a trick on the new nurse on the unit. Hospital kids are so beyond their years, but man oh man are they tough on newbies. They slipped off their armbands and switched them with one another. Then they swapped rooms and settled in. The new nurse assigned to one of the boys came in to give him his meds. She ended up giving him his meds before one of the other nurses noticed something fishy, and they realized the boys had swapped. The boys were reprimanded to the extent that they had a long lecture on how serious that is, and thankfully it wasn't a serious med, but it could have been. They also started putting the armbands on their ankles, so they were harder to get off. TLDR, boys in the hospital who looked almost identical switched places and one got the other's meds. Boys thought it was hilarious and adults flipped. I go to a college with a large core of cadets. A buddy of mine had a twin brother who was visiting from another school, so we decided to put him in a physical training uniform for that afternoon's part. We were freshmen, so our lives suck anyways. Basically the time before a workout we would get our rooms inspected, torn apart, and wait in push-up position until the part actually started. Our plan began to unravel, because there was a very strict way that freshmen had to speak, and the twin didn't know how to act like a freshman. I realized he was in trouble, because some sophomores had just trashed his room. I sprinted across the hallway to help him and all he could say was help me. I tried to help him fix the room and tried to tell him how to speak. It was too late. A junior had been alerted that there was something wrong. The sophomores had reported that a freshman was acting retarded. The junior slammed the twin down into a chair and was pounding him with questions. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why aren't you talking like a freshman? Have you been hydrating? Do you need to go to the hospital? Finally, the petrified twin murmurs, I'm his twin, and hesitantly, sir. At this point the sophomores, who weren't well-adjusted human beings as it was, exploded and ripped the sacred unit training gear off of him and threw him out of our dorm. There was quiet for a few bated moments until our commander informed us that our planned recovery run and dismissal for the weekend had been cancelled. He wouldn't tell us what the new activity was, but we were instructed to bring our reflective belts and road guard lights because we would need them before he was done with us. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon at this point. What ensued was a multi-hour fuck fest that I'll never forget. But at the end of the day I have no regrets. So my stepdad and his brother are not bad people, just incredibly stupid and have never been in a crash. Essentially, when they were 16, my stepdad didn't know the road rules, so he had his brother take the test. In New Zealand you start off with a learner's or theory test in which you must gain a certain amount of hours with a full licensed driver before you can take your restricted, in which you can drive by yourself but have to wait 6 months for your full license, but with no alcohol, which in effect is just a license but with alcohol. Restrictions removed. Anyway, blah blah. One of the learners had taken the test for my stepdad, and because they are identical they now both have a license. When one of them has a license taken off them, they send each other their license and claim each other's name to avoid a driving ban. They have been avoiding the NZ police system for 30 years as they always drive after a few beers. But to be fair, they are one of the few people who don't actually drink drive till a comatose point. They only dodge the alcohol maximum of having like 2 beers. I still feel safe with them whilst driving as they are very good drivers. Another time they have abused their identical nature is when they are overseas. Blah blah went to England and went to a bar and made a dig of himself and faked over my stepdad by claiming his name the whole night. My stepdad and my mum do an overseas mission to England and go to that bar, not knowing the problems blah blah caused. One patron comes over and says blah blah, you faking asshole, you have some nerve showing up here again, gets punched right in the IKO. Mum continues to freak out and make sure he's okay. He only needed stitches, but essentially they play spy vs spy with each other in NZ and other countries. Some of the stories I hear when they both drink together are so faking funny. I will tell you guys the other ones when I hear them. Not a twin, but my brother is only 1 year older, and people used to think we were. In Aho, one day I was supposed to hang out with some friends after soccer practice, so I brought another shirt with me. That way I wouldn't be wearing the one I had on all day, but wouldn't be wearing my sweaty shirt I practiced in. In the morning before school started, someone bumped into my brother, and his breakfast spilled all over him. I ended up on giving him my extra shirt, not thinking much about it. I also gave him a few extra bucks to take my backpack home with him, so I wouldn't have to carry it everywhere after school. So I get out of practice, go out to the parking lot, and my friend's car isn't there. I wait about 30 minutes, don't see him. So I start looking around, and I don't see him at the school. Finally, I give up and walk home. Turns out my brother went to the library after school to work on a project for a bit. When he was leaving, my friends saw him in my shirt with my backpack, so they thought he was me. So just to fuck with them, he went and hung out with them for the afternoon. It wasn't until a few hours later that he mentioned hating a band that I really liked, which confused everyone, and he apparently couldn't play it off. Friends. I too am an identical twin. You may have heard of us. I'm running Bear Saini. His name is Torn Feather Gupta, and we come from the land of India, New York. I was once a powerful shaman in my village, very strong and sought out. People would come all the way from the next village over to sample my medicine and healing tricks. So the story begins. I was in my hut, a small palace made entirely of gold mined by 7-year-olds in eastern Eurochina, a small country on the continent of Africa. So there I was, curing AIDS and cancer simultaneously, when in comes my twin brother, Torn feather Gupta, and he says, "Running bear, you must help me, I'm dying." Now I'm a very gracious man, and when your brother says he is dying, and you can help him, some might choose to do so, or not, depending on the amount of money owed to said brother. Well, the god Allah must have shone down on Torn feather that day, for when he came to me, I owed him no money, so I was able to help him. Anyways, I was in quite a tight schedule, so I had him sit down. I ordered a pizza from Domino's, and got to work. First, I removed his ears, then his eyes, nose, hair, etc. and began placing it on myself as I went. Soon I became him. Thank you. So get this right. I grew up in Coral, and for months people keep telling me that they'd seen me in Cheadle Hill. I say to them, I've got my grey mare booze and my sweet Highland sunshine. Why the fuck would I ever go to Cheadle Hill? So one day I decide I've had enough of this impersonator and I pay some random dude 50 gold coins to go and take this motherfucker out. Anyway, he comes back with this dude, and it turns out he's my long lost twin brother, and apparently a home where we lived in got attacked by trolls or some shit when we were young. So we ask this dude to take us to our old home, but this is where shit starts to get weird. This guy decides to take what some might say a very faking scenic route to our home. I'm talking all around Sarodi Isle. We are going into caves, fighting skeletons and ghosts and all kinds of Deidre. Speaking of Deidre, did I mention this douchebag took us into oblivion? We literally passed through hell. Have you ever swam in lava? Let me tell you, it faking hurts. I must have been knocked unconscious like 10 times. Anyway, we are still waiting to find this home we were born in. I'm like 90% sure this dude didn't even mark it on his map. At this point I just want to go back to Coral and get drunk. I once pulled off a pretty awesome switch. It was senior year of high school. There was this kid in our calculus team who was a sophomore, and he was a little gullible, but obviously pretty smart to be in calculus as a sophomore. Some of us would occasionally make fun of his gullibility, and he was starting to get a little wary. One day, this kid says hi to Carlos, some guy in our chemistry class. The guy responds that he's not Carlos, he's Ivan, Carlos's twin, who was not in our chemistry class. We all continue to inform him that the guy was indeed Ivan and not Carlos. The kid didn't fall for that, of course. He knew we were making fun of him. Except that not only was it actually Ivan, but Ivan and Carlos are fraternal twins. They're even of different heights. We thought this was hilarious. As I was telling another friend about this incident after chemistry class, a plan was hatched. My mother has a twin sister, and my father has a twin brother, and they also got married, and had a kid who looks just like me. My twin cousin Steve. Never mind that the genetics of this don't make any sense, and that in the country where I'm originally from, Steve would have been a very uncharacteristic name. So, I told most people on the math team about this plan. Steve was in algebra 2 at a private school in the county where we happened to have friends. Occasionally, during lunch with the target kid, someone would ask me how my cousin Steve was doing. A few weeks later, maybe they'd drop in my twin cousin Steve in casual conversation. Eventually, someone asked me to tell the story of how I have a twin cousin. This went on for a few months. Just casual remarks every once in a while. Until, finally, the opportunity came for this kid to meet Steve. At one nearby competition every year, we would organize a lunch party at someone's house during the break. That year, we decided to invite the team from the nearby private school along to the lunch party, and Steve was going to make his appearance. I borrowed a school shirt from my friend at that school, and brought my sunglasses. At some point during the party, which was in the backyard of the host's house, I started feeling ill. I stopped eating, and a little while later I went inside the house. I quickly changed into the other school's shirt, put on my sunglasses, which I don't usually wear, and, sheet, my hair was still sprayed in our school colors for the competition. I put on a local sports team hat that I found in the host's room. I don't normally wear those, and went out the front door to go around the back. I affected my speech and acted extremely hungry, and holy shit, I totally pulled it off. The kid was astonished that Steve looked so much like me. This carried on for a few minutes before I was unmasked by a different kid who wasn't in on the joke and pulled off the hat, revealing the colored hair underneath. But man, for those few minutes, he totally believed it. Disclaimer, this isn't necessarily a great achievement and I don't have an identical twin. At 16 years old, I purchased alcohol using my 19-year-old brother's ID at an LCBO about 4 times. Yeah, we look that much alike. One of the times I went with my friend who was also 16, posed as an 18-year-old, and he put one of the bottles on the counter for me. They wouldn't let me buy that last bottle because he was underage and didn't have ID. So as sketchy as this sounds, I stood outside of an LCBO asking strangers to purchase me alcohol while my friend waited by our locked up bikes. One old guy and his mid-20s daughter decided to help me out. I told them about how they wouldn't let me purchase the one bottle. They saw me walk out with bottles. And they believed I was 19. I don't even look 19. I gave the daughter the money, plus a tip, and she bought the last bottle for me, but this is where the scary part comes in. I was talking to her dad who was sitting in the passenger seat of the car, parked outside of the store, and we were talking about how we've all been there just trying to have a good time on a Friday night. He then said, "I don't suspect you're underage," and lifted a badge. I didn't get a good look at the badge, but I can tell you I had a heart attack. I didn't show any signs of panic and I just carried on with the conversation. I met up with my friend instantly after, and I told him what happened, and he thought we were faked when I told him about the badge. It's a nice little story to tell to friends. This story is kinda faked up and sad, but here goes nothing. My twin brother and I often spent time with each other's wives, swapping without them knowing early in our marriages. We'd really get them going and pissed off at us as an ongoing running joke that lasted quite a few years. Unfortunately, one of them ended up hanging herself due to some mental health depression issues that neither of us was aware of at the time. Other times, there was this sick fuck who was always getting in our business, really pissing us off. We'd royally fuck with him back cause he didn't know there were 2 of us. This dude was so pissed and psycho that he told the cops that we broke the law and even got my brother arrested. Even then, he didn't know there were 2 of us. But here's where it's even more faked up. My brother was killed while incarcerated for a crime he never even faking committed. She's just not the same and never will be. Fortunately, this sick mofo's business partner couldn't stand him either and set up an appointment between us. It was strange because I discovered this dude had been cloning himself with some sort of Tesla machine and was drowning his own clones. That's really faked up too. Okay, story time. Me and my twin go to different colleges, but during spring break we went to Puerto Vallarta with a few friends each. We stayed at different hotels, but decided to meet up afterwards. The first night at a local Coco Bongo nightclub, we arrive but hang out with our friends at opposite sides of the club, dressed in the same Louis Wheel t-shirts. After a drink I give him a hand signal and we all proceed to hit the dance floor. Now at the door we met this nasty vato who sold us some pills. I stayed sober by my friends were flying high as we made our way down to the pit. This is Mexico nightlife at its finest. Confetti, bubbles, Darude, sandstorm, and a strobe light. The strobe light is going non-stop on the floor and my friends are screaming. They don't know what's happening, and then my twin shows up. We are all jumping around and spinning in circles. My friends are crying and freaking out. At one point we are doing a mirror act and staring at people. My smallest friend Rupert starts grabbing at his shirt and mine and says, "You guys got tree fitty?" I realize that he was a damn Loch Ness monster. Oh my god. Damn, it's good to be a twin.